I'm just going to recap a little bit about SUMA and stop, and then you ask me questions about anything to do with SUMA. SUMA is a workers' cooperative. I know I'm in a consumer cooperative section, but we are a workers' cooperative. So this is what we had yesterday. Started in 1977, sizable turnover now, unbroken growth, all self-financed, collective management style, no executive managers. And these are our principles that we have operated by since the first days. Quite a lot of similarities to Mondragon, completely separate development. We had nothing to do with Mondragon in the early days, and it's interesting to see how many common features there are between Mondragon and SUMA as worker-controlled businesses. And indeed, I see this in other countries. I see this in South America when they describe their worker cooperatives. It seems that when workers control their business, there are things they want to do, things they want to change. One of them is democratic decision-making. They want to be in control. And another one is multi-skilling and job variety. They don't want to be doing the same boring job every day. They want to have a variety of jobs and to have a variety of skills. That's very useful for the business because, as Michael was describing in Mondragon, when the market changes, workers can change the products they make, the services they deliver. And there's a concept that's used in the EU, or in the European Commission anyway. It's called flex security, that employers are supposed to offer job security if workers are prepared to be retrained. Unfortunately, that initiative was stopped by the employers group, who did not want to guarantee job security. But on the workers' side, workers were quite happy to be retrained. SUMA also has, like Mondragon, a job for life career development. So once you join SUMA as a member, you are very valuable to the cooperative, and so people move around inside the cooperative learning new skills in different parts of the business. This is a small business compared to Mondragon. It's only 130 workers and it's isolated. We aren't part of a big group, so we very much have to look after ourselves. I have worked in every single part of this business except accounts. I really cannot get excited about adding up numbers. It's just boring. And so my accuracy is not good enough for accountants, so they won't have me in accounts. But I've done sales, I've done development, I've done warehouse logistics, I've delivery, personnel management. I've tried to sell tinned foods in Sweden. That was a bad mistake. Eventually a very polite Swedish buyer informed me that in Sweden the only people who eat food in tin cans are refugees and disaster victims. Food is sold in glass jars in Sweden, as it is in many countries, but we didn't know that, so get your market research right. SUMA is an ultra-ethical employer, and that's all peer-reviewed and peer-managed. Nobody imposes those principles on us. It's the people who work in SUMA who guard those principles. So in terms of gender equality, race equality, disability, people are fiercely guarding those principles within SUMA. And we talked earlier about the equal wage rates. This is quite unusual. A lot of UK worker co-ops started out paying equal wages. The 1970s worker cooperatives from the UK started from an anarchist tradition, not a labourist tradition. And equality in terms of wages was very important. We have kept this. Other cooperatives have abandoned it. And some of them say, we wish we had kept it. So, for example, if we need financial skills, financial management skills, a finance director in the UK, €100,000 a year minimum. You won't find anybody of that quality for less than that amount of money, 100,000. So we chop the job up into 4 parts, and we train 4 people to do a part of that job, and they work together in a cooperative team, and they achieve far more than one expert could. And we do that with all of these jobs. We will not be intimidated by the jobs market or the skills market. We refuse to be. And we maintain our equality of wages, which is so important to us. We have a flat hierarchy. There is no status authority. As a personnel manager, I have authority to carry out the wishes of the co-op. I have no authority as an individual. So I can say, you must do this because the co-op has decided you must do this. Come to work on time, perhaps. But I can't say to people, do this because I'm telling you I'm your boss. So my authority is very restricted to what the co-op has decided. And if I try to use my status because I have been at Suma a long time, then people will complain, and sometimes straight back to me. You have no authority to tell me to do that. And I think, okay, I have to find another way of persuading them to come to work on time. And we are common ownership, which means indivisible reserves. In 1976, the British government passed a Common Ownership Act, which said that the reserves in cooperatives could be held in common, which means indivisible. And so when the cooperative was wound up, those reserves and those assets had to be passed to another cooperative. That law lapsed because it was time limited and it wasn't renewed when the government lost interest in cooperatives. And so now we have indivisible reserves, but it's entirely a civil matter. And should a worker cooperative decide that they are going to split the reserves up and wind up the business or sell the business to somebody else, then somebody has to go to court to take out an injunction to stop that, and then they have a breach of contract case in court. So it's not a proper legal protection in the UK. I think probably that's about enough because we're quite short of time. I spoke yesterday, so I don't want to take up all the time. Just wanted to give people the opportunity to ask any questions. Unfortunately, I don't have the translation headphone because of the feedback, so well, it'll have to be in English, sorry. Do we have any questions?
Apart from your core business, that's wholesale of organic fair trade food, and apart from all other Suma principles, what are the other activities that you do to maybe strengthen the local communities? How are you connected with local community where your store is, and so basically Elland? And another thing, how do you distribute the profit or surplus annually or in whatever other kind?
Yes, sure. The second first, distributing the surplus, remarkably similar to Mondragon. If we make more than £100,000 net profit in a year, we put half back into the business and distribute half as a wage bonus. And in a good year, that's equivalent to a month's salary. So, you know, in the UK we have 12 months in a wage year, and so we have like the Italian 13th month, which is quite unusual in the UK. It's interesting that Mondragon have 14 months. So maybe when they give themselves a wage rise, they have 15 months. We don't separate out any contribution to education or to Cooperatives UK, which is our apex organisation. And I'd just like to go down a little bit to, let's see if we've got Cooperatives UK here. Yeah, here we go. 10 years ago, we merged the cooperative associations so that all co-ops are now represented in Cooperatives UK, which means that we bring together all the strengths. So we have very big and very rich consumer cooperatives in the UK. So we bring their money together. The worker cooperatives, our politics are much more radical, and so we bring our politics to the table. And then the financial co-ops, they have great financial skills, so they bring that. And the farmer co-ops bring their business skills, because farmer co-ops are really hard business people usually. So we get all those things together and we support each other. And we put the co-ops in a network of mutual support. That has made a big difference to the support of small co-ops in the UK. And it's also meant that we now have this thing called the Cooperative Enterprise Hub, where the consumer cooperatives, especially the cooperative group, which is the largest consumer cooperative, help small and start-up co-ops. They provide a free national advice and support network, so people like me who are experienced can be paid to go and help new start-up co-ops. And we're trying to do the same thing in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, where the big rich co-ops are the agricultural co-ops and the credit unions. And we're trying to persuade the agricultural co-ops and the credit unions to support the smaller co-ops. So it's the same kind of principle, cooperation between co-ops, as Mondragon, but we're just doing it in a different way. And the other question was, how do we work with the local community? We sponsor quite a lot of eco activities, green activities. We sponsor installing renewable energy into local schools. We plant thousands of trees. Where we live in the north of England, it's not mountainous, but there are big hills and steep valleys. And in the Industrial Revolution, all the trees were cut down, and so they have quite bad flooding in the towns in the valley bottom. So we are helping, along with other people, to reforest the hillsides to try and reduce the flooding. So by doing that, we can be carbon neutral. I know that's debatable whether that is a real benefit or not, but we do run a fleet of diesel fuel trucks which uses a lot of fuel. We don't have a separate CSR, corporate social responsibility policy as such, because members simply get involved and then come back to the co-op and say, can I have some money? And the members, if they like the idea of the project, will say yes. We gave nearly 20,000 euros to the local children's museum. We have a national children's museum and play space locally, and we sponsored a new playground there. So it's simply because we are in the community, our members are from the local community, and they want to be involved in that community. Our local community in our region, it's characterized by very low-paid jobs, minimum wage, very insecure employment. So most of the businesses are owned by large corporates who just delocate and move around year by year, and very poor skilled work, so people cannot use their intelligence in the work that they're doing. We have almost like two kinds of employment now. We have core employment of skilled people. This is in many parts of the UK. Core employment of skilled people and employers hang on to those employees because they've invested in their training and their skills. But then there's a periphery, a huge number of low-skilled people doing menial work, often supplied by labour agencies. So they're not even directly employed by the company that they're working for. It's great abuse of employment rights. And they evade European employment law by doing this. But Suma, everybody is directly employed. And we also have temporary workers, and they earn almost twice as much per hour as they would if they were working for a labour agency. So the people love these jobs, and then once they have the experience, they can apply for membership.
Super. Thank you. Just one very short question. Your mode of operation is very unique. So are there any groups trying to copy it?
We share our skills and our experience with other worker cooperatives in the UK. But what I'd like to say is that what Suma does is not unusual. We're a small food distributor and wholesaler. There's nothing special about that. Any business could be run like this. Why isn't it? Why aren't more small businesses run like this? Well, I think it's because the people who own these small and medium-sized businesses don't want to share the profits. And when you look at the car parks of the other businesses in our industrial estate, and you see the beaten up old rusty cars of the workers, and then you see the Bentleys and the Jaguars and the BMWs of the people who own those businesses, you can see where the money is going. There are no Bentleys and Jaguars in our car park.